Game Sharp Neckbeard by Mighty Thor 211. Hello everyone. So I just wanted to share the story of how I got reared in public at a game shop. Alright, story time, my lords and my ladies. It's a warm summer day. I am off of work, so I decided to go run some errands. First stop, the local video game store. Always support local, fuck GameStop. Walking and picking out my games. I settle on 4 games because they are on sale and I got a gift card. Score. I am standing in line behind a Neckbeard. Now this is one of those skinny ones but still has a shitty beard and long greasy hair with a fedora on. He is complaining to the clerk about how the PSP was better than the DS and getting very upset that they didn't have more PSP stuff in-house. Then it all happened. He rayed right at the clerk. Full bore, sounding like a pig in heat in the middle of the deep south. I was kind of familiar with the re. I had heard stories and seen videos, but this was the first time I had ever seen it in public in their wild. It's kinda blew my mind. The clerk didn't know what to do. Here's this greasy 5 feet 5 inches twig freaking out on this guy. At this point it just kind slipped out of my mouth, Jesus fucking Christ. This greatly upset said Beard apparently. So he quickly whips around and gets close enough that I can smell his breath. To add it in perspective, he was on 5 feet 5 inches and skinny. I am 6'2", about 260 chef and bouncer. So I am a large person. He proceeds to call me a fucking Chad and then rays right in my face. I was so shocked by this I didn't know what to do. So I just chuckled and laughed in his face. This upset him even more and he quickly gathered his stuff and marched out of the store onto a waiting bike and pedaled away. I was kinda in shock. Like I said, I had never seen it in the wild before. Well, thank you guys for reading.
Neckbeard has strange definition of dating. By Golfwang 1138. I call him lifts because he bragged to me about buying shoes with 3 inches lifts. According to him, being 5 feet 8 inches was the reason he was having difficulty with women. I'm sure the Neckbeard and horrible personality have nothing to do with it. Lifts is 30 years old and works for the same company as me. My first impression was that he was an awkward guy who took himself way too seriously. He didn't seem like someone who enjoyed socializing or had any friends. Several other employees hated him and I soon discovered why. He has a difficult personality and is extremely combative. He is very reminiscent of Dwight Schrute from The Office. Every time I tried to have small talk with Lifts, he would bring up various women that he was dating. I didn't buy this at all because he was such a socially disconnected person. Some of the girls at work have even mentioned how they found him creepy. Still, he insisted that he slayed 10 hard body Asian girls. Those are the exact words he used. I'm completely serious. On multiple occasions he has told me that only Asian women are worth dating because they are subservient to men. I told him, my mistake for even talking to him, that I have dated girls of all different races. He was particularly appalled that one of my exes is black. He would ask me over and over why I would date a black woman. According to him, they are the least valuable race of women. Strong words coming from someone who I would consider to be the least valuable person I have ever come across. After this I had no qualms in expressing to Lifts that I did not like him. Despite my open disdain for Lifts, he would try to sit with me at lunch. Me and a buddy were brutal in making fun of him, but in retrospect he must have taken this as playful banter. One day he was trying to impress us by saying he was dating 3 women at once. I told him that he didn't need to make things up for people to like him and that even if that were true, it wouldn't make him cool to us. This really pissed him off. He then showed me and my friend pictures of 3 different girls he said he was dating. I called him out and he started getting defensive. Finally he opens up a dating app and goes to a message that he sent to one of them. It was just an initial greeting he had sent a woman, but there was no reply at all. My friend pointed this out, but he insisted that he was technically talking to her and that dating was only a formality. I can't even comprehend being so delusional that you would think sending a message over the internet is dating. Still, Lifts kept insisting that he was dating these women. Not that I think this is a bad trait, but I assume that Lifts was a virgin. It was a great surprise to me that he actually has a daughter. But that is another post for another time. I will have to elaborate on the hilarity that is his baby mama drama.
I slept with a Neckbeard and he just won't let it go by that random gay kid. Hello amazing Reddit peeps. So I've been kinda lurking on Reddit for a while now but never got around to making my own account until today. After a few drinks during a video chat sessions with my friend, let's call her Mandy, we got onto the topic of this creep and she encouraged, /calf/forced/calf/ me to start an account and tell this tale, one of many. And, well, I'm easily led so here goes. Quick trigger warning, there's some mention of non-consensual stuff. I don't go into detail about it and it only happens in works of fiction that Gavin showed me, but if it makes you uncomfortable then maybe skip this one. Your mental health is more important than my story. We'll call this Neckbeard Gavin for this story, no offense to any Gavins out there. Anyway, Mandy and I have known Gavin since we were in primary school, but we never started hanging out with each other till we were in secondary school. He grew into your stereotypical baby neckbeard, anime clothing, beard, awful hygiene etc. He was basically just lacking the fedora and trench coat. He continued this way when we started attending college. We all attend the same college, it's the closest one to us, but take different courses. Mandy does music, I do fashion and Gavin does art. He is definitely gifted but cannot take criticism and seems to only be interested in his assignments if he has the chance to draw anime guys and girls in really revealing clothing, handing in half-assed attempts if he doesn't find it interesting. Anyway, sorry for rambling, back to the story. I came out to my family when I was 17 and it took some time for my family to come to terms with it, though they're amazingly supportive now. During the time that they were struggling to come to terms with it, I kind of went through a rebellious stage. I had a bunch of boyfriends, all short-term, and slept around a lot, though never when I was in a relationship. It was partly because I wanted to spite my parents, though I'd never do anything to verbally or physically hurt them, and partly because it made me feel wanted. I'm not gonna go into a big sob story here, all that you'll need to know is that at this point in time I slept around and it wound up leading to Gavin and I doing it after a party. We hadn't drank much but I'd had a pretty rough few days and desperately wanted to feel well wanted, and Gavin was there to provide that. An important thing to note here was that I'd made it perfectly clear before and after it happened that it didn't mean anything, and he agreed with me. I found out a while later, and although I don't like him anymore I still feel really bad that I was his first because, well, a lot of people want their first time to be special. But the guilt is still there. Anyway, things were fine at first until Mandy pointed out that Gavin was hanging around me a lot more, complimenting me, initiating a lot of physical contact, and had even started calling me puppy, which I do not like in the slightest. It's a cute nickname I guess, but it made me kinda uncomfortable. Anyways, this continued for a couple of weeks and I tooled him aside a few times to remind him that I loved him as a friend and that what happened didn't mean we were dating. I even apologized for giving him the wrong impression, but he assured me that I hadn't and he was just showing his friend some affection. I still felt bad that us sleeping together may have meant more to him than it had to me, so I let his behavior slide, though I still made sure to remind him every now and then that I loved him as a friend, not a boyfriend. This behavior persisted until he started trying to get me to watch gay hentai with him or would send me gay fanfictions to read, and these weren't your cutesy fanfictions either. They involved a lot of non-consensual stuff, kidnapping, brainwashing etc., just generally not something I'd like to read. I'm not exactly vanilla, but that stuff is way out of my comfort zone, and I told him how uncomfortable it made me on several occasions. He even went as far as to compare me to the submissive in one of his fanfictions. Well, he said submissive, but I didn't really see it like that. It wasn't consensual and made me kinda ill just thinking about it. I made excuses to not hang out with him on my own and told him he was making me uncomfortable and that I didn't like the stuff he was showing me. I never fully yelled at him or anything at this point, as I don't do too well with confrontation. The first time I ever got mad at him for his behavior was when he started telling guys at college that I had STDs in order to stop them from sleeping with me. Most of them were straight and hadn't shown any interest in me. I met guys through apps, and although most of them didn't believe it, I still felt kind of humiliated. When I confronted him about it, he just said something along the lines of, "I was just protecting you. You need someone to look after you and make sure you don't get hurt." I yelled at him and reminded him that he was not my boyfriend and that all he'd done was humiliate and made me lose my trust in him completely. It was a really low point for me, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but yeah, it happened and the college did give him a stern talking to. After that I stopped talking to him. I was furious with him and haven't spoken to him since. Though this hasn't exactly stopped him. He goes through phases of sending me gifts for Valentine's Day or my birthday, or even just out of the blue. They range from art supplies, Funko Pop figures and DVDs to explicit drawings and adult toys. I left them at his desk the first few times but ended up resorting to throwing them in the trash as he wouldn't take them back and I didn't want them. He did calm down with this recently and resorted to sending me messages, drawings and explicit photos online. He created several accounts under different names to contact me. I've blocked most of them, but he just keeps on making more. Though he isn't always like this. He goes through phases of insulting me, reminding me that no one will ever love me, creating groups full of different people that he sends me screenshots of and tells me that these are all the people that can't stand me. It's pretty obvious that they're all him. I'm not 100% sure what to do. The college has reminded him not to come near me or my class and have spoken to him several times about his behavior. I don't really want to get the police involved as it'll just worry my family, and I know that he would never physically do anything. He's more of an annoyance than anything else. So here's my story of Gavin the Neckbeard. I have plenty more of them and even have some screenshots of conversations we had before I blocked him. I might post more, but I'm not sure. I'm still really new to the whole posting on Reddit thing. Sorry about the writing, it's not my speciality and my attention span is practically non-existent, so there's a bunch of stuff missing. Anyways, hope y'all are staying safe and having a wonderful day or night. D.
My friend's Neckbeard brother wants an anime Neko little sister more than his real one by spookytart. This may be slightly all over the place, Terry's a lot to unpack here. I honestly didn't think he'd ever meet a person like this in the wild, but oh boy was I wrong. My friend's brother, 19M, is probably the best stereotype I've ever met for a neckbeard. He was extremely quiet in high school, and pretty hostile towards people just because they were popular. It got pretty crazy when he somehow got a girlfriend for a few weeks but broke up with her for having the audacity to ask him to drink with her. Has the kind of guy who's really rude to women in the real world who smoke/drink or show skin. Has huge into anime. That's not a bad thing on its own, but having hand-drawn pictures of nekos all over the wall makes it weird. Even weirder when he openly states women should be more like anime girls and that women these days are all sluts. Things came to a boiling point a few months ago. Neckbeard and my friend share a Steam account and she happened to find some very questionable little sister anime games he had downloaded. It would be bad enough to find that if it wasn't for the fact that he's verbally/physically abusive towards his sister, even telling her to die at one point. Neckbeard did ask her to call him Big Brother at one point. She is 16 while he is 19, make of that what you will. Not as relevant to the story, but he does pretend to be a girl online sometimes. I don't know why, I don't know what he does talking to girls online, but I don't want to find out. Sorry if everything's a little mashed up, first time poster.
My school's most prominent substitute teacher. By JoshRichardsonsson. Looking at him right now. Mind you, I'm a senior in high school. Dude looks like a mix of Review Tekusa and Boogie 2988 and of course morbidly obese with a literal neck beard and disheveled hair to boot. I've seen him subbing here for years now. I'm convinced he has one pair of clothes. I've seen him day after day for years and I've never seen him without his gray-blue t-shirt and oversized pants. Same pair of shoes every time. Despite his pants being oversized, his dick always poked through. He has to have a semi constantly. Hess apparently a decorated army veteran too. He also worked on set design on pretty much every major Marvel film from the Avengers to unreleased movies he can't tell us about. One kid called him out on his bullshit and he told him that speaking bad about a Marine can lead to jail time. I'd feel bad for him if he wasn't such a repulsive creepy douchebag.
Neckbeard trying to impress a Italian girl goes very round by Kenny-Lamlock. Hello. My name is Kenny. Now just a bit about me. I'm German and my English isn't that good, so apologies if I type something that doesn't make sense. My Neckbeard story takes place at a school trip where I went with my beautiful Italian girl. Introducing the characters. My Italian girl, her name is Diamonds, so 5,3 inches tall. Bit chubby. Has a beautiful Italian accent. Brown hair. And blue eyes. Me Kenny. 5,6 inches tall. Strong German accent. Blonde hair. And blue eyes. Can't gain weight for anything. Our Neckbeard, let's call him Potato. Black greasy hair. Light green eyes. And overweight. This school trip was to explore New York and Washington, D.C. The school had combined with another school from Michigan, I believe. Of course, same sex in the same room. I was placed with my friends, but this one name I saw on the list wasn't familiar. It was Potato. I knew it was a student from Michigan. I love meeting new people and I thought he'd make great friends with Potato. But oh boy, I was wrong. Grab your Doritos and Mountain Dew, cause here is the story. The plane ride to Washington was fine. I sat next to Diamonds enjoying her presence. I love teasing her. Diamonds is from Italy, so whenever she speak English she'd have a hard time pronouncing H and A. Of course she'd get me back. Me pronouncing verses are like a tongue twister. I was able to meet Potato at the hotel. His smell was horrible, it was like rotten cheese. The group decided to go on to introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Potato, I'm from Michigan. And so far I fell in love with the girl, it's normal or so I thought. Hi, I'm Kenny, I'm from Germany, and so far I enjoyed the plane trip since I was able to be by my Italian wife, and my friends started to be friends and started saying that I was doing adult stuff with Diamonds. We all laughed at the jokes we threw, and after a few minutes of laughing it was head to the elevator to the room. Diamonds was with her friends waiting for her elevator as well. I went over and just became the cringy boyfriend I am. Hello lady, the smell was familiar and you guessed it, it was Potato. Diamonds replied with hola and Potato's face just lit in surprised. You know Spanish? Well no, I took Spanish classes as well. He had a grin that I only imagined in movies. It's actually Italian. Diamond's accent was strong as well, so it sounded more like it's actually Italian. Again Potato's face lit. That's so cool. Oh, you know Kenny, his eyes like grew fire. I was confused, he should have noticed me, I'm a lot bigger than Diamonds. Yup, hess my German boyfriend. I thought that was enough to push Potato away, but this is a Neckbeard we are talking about, so it takes a lot more. Huff, why do girls choose jerks? Diamonds deserves someone kinder, someone like me. Potato had said this when we entered the hotel room. Dude, like Diamonds and Kenny been dating like for 3 years, my best friend Ash had said. Well, at least I can speak Spanish. I hope Potato knows the difference between Spanish and Italian. The next day starts off with breakfast, of course. The breakfast room was so big that there was some kind of dance floor in the middle. Knowing Diamonds, she'd go in the middle and dance her life away. I sat with Diamonds for breakfast. My friends don't mind this, since I do it so often. Hello, can I sit here? Potato said, going over to us. I thought it was normal until he started flirting with Diamonds. I also noticed he copied my style. I usually wear tuxedo shirts with black pants. He had some kind of tuxedo outfit. He looked like he was going to some kind of opera. Diamonds wore a white dress with little roses on it, knee-high white stockings with red heels. Diamonds has her hair down most the time since it's short and curly. I love messing with the curls. You're so beautiful. I always loved Italian girls. They are so beautiful. I was gonna snap. Until Diamonds just stood up and left the table to go to the dance floor. Potato had followed behind Diamonds asking for attention like some whore. Music was playing and Potato took advantage to show his moves. Watch me, Italian princess. Potato threw himself on the ground and started to flip and flop like a fish. Students came by to see the disaster that appeared in front of us. The moves were terrible. I wasn't sure if he was having a spaz attack or just trying to dance. Diamonds wasn't taking it. Potato let someone else have a turn. Potato stood on his 2 feet. He looked like he wrestled water or something. Oh course my lady, the groups of students wanted me and Diamonds to dance. I only know Italian dancers since him just turned Diamonds for such a long time. When me and Diamonds started dancing I felt demon eyes on my skin. I wasn't sure if I let go of Diamonds it'd die or if I touched Diamonds it'd die. Students took turns dancing. Look at this. Potato showed Diamonds a drawing of some kind of anime character that he drawn with Sharpie on his skin. Diamonds wasn't impressed. In fact she got annoyed. That's cool. Right. It's like we are soulmates. The week was horrible. Potato tried many things to impress Diamonds. Even confessed his love in front of the buzz. I love you Diamonds, please leave Kenny, I will love you more. I was about done. I was gonna chug my beer and attack him with the glass. Potato. For the last time, I'm not interested. I love Kenny and everything you did is embarrassing. I bet even Michigan is embarrassed to call itself your home. You're so cringy. Yeah, I watch anime. Yes, I am Italian. Yes, I love Kenny. Now please leave me alone. I don't wanna ever see you again. I will gladly be your friend and nothing more. You tell him Diamonds. I'm done. You only want Kenny cause you wanna be JackEastriver. Why not me? I'm so much better. Don't go crying to me once he beats you like a woman should be treated. Yup, he said it. Diamonds had released the Neckbeard. For the rest of the trip Potato tried to apologize, but Diamonds walked past him like they never met before. That's only part 1, my friends. There's part 2 where Potato tried to physically take Diamonds away, but that's for later. Hope you have enough Doritos and Mountain Dew for next time. Have a good day. Kenny.
Hipster Beard, the worst roommate I could ever dare imagine. By AngryDM. This story is different than my other stories in that it is not about someone I have played tabletop RPGs with. He was present during some sessions that took place in that house, as I will mention, but no, this is not a bad player story, this is a very bad roommate story. I call him Hipster Beard because, among many other smug for no good reason traits, he found it physically impossible to admit to anything he liked, unironically. Sneer at people's taste in TV, movies, music, anything, whenever he shuffled by. He loathed the word ironic. I like that band. Only ironically. They're so bad they're good. I tried to confront him several times, demanding to know what he liked unironically. You probably never heard of them /it. And then shuffle away. He hated the hipster label. I called him a hipster once, and he scoffed and said, "You think freedom-seeking youth," he said that, freedom-seeking youth, as a wrinkled wheezing late-20s person that sounded like he constantly struggled to breathe and always spoke in a creaking dry monotone, are hipsters? Really? This story starts with an explanation on why he came and why he was impossible to get rid of. My other roommate, who was a lifelong friend of mine, was bestowed an entire 3-bedroom house by a wealthy relative. Living expenses dropped dramatically overnight when I took up his offer and moved in. We weren't very wealthy, but with a place paid for and no rent to worry about, for a short while it felt like a life of luxury. That is, until his long missing brother, who basically walked away from his parents over a decade ago, suddenly reappeared and demanded an equal share of the place, even though he wanted nothing to do with the family until that point, and basically nothing was known about him or where he was. If you let him live there, you have to let me. We're the same blood, something like that. So, yes, he moved in. On the very night of the move-in, the garage was reeking of pot. I've had these kinds of roommates before. The smell is unmistakable, and putting it in rolling papers is a poor disguise. I'm one of those poor souls that gets sinus flare-ups, dry eyes, and other mild allergic symptoms just being around that stench, so I asked him to stop, and to help bring furniture in. First, you can't objectively prove I'm smoking pot. He shook his head, smirked, avoided eye contact, and continued to smoke. Then he brought a mattress in. It was his only contribution to the furniture pool. We asked him where he got it. I was rather ignorant of how horrible bedbugs were at the time, because I never experienced them, but by the time he got on to answering the question, the mattress was already in his room. He claimed that someone among his old roommates brought bedbugs to that house, but it's okay, because he sprayed the mattress with Raid. Bug spray is basically useless on bedbugs, especially their eggs, but I didn't know that yet. From the first days, plates and utensils would slowly disappear. He locked his door, constantly, even barricaded it from the inside, and yet when we knocked and asked to know where things went, again, the same way, you can't objectively prove where those are. They're not in here. If you violate my privacy, I will call the police. We had more money than we used to, so we bought new plates, that vanished. We bought new utensils, that vanished. He would stay in that room all day, except to shuffle downstairs to get food, but he would only do this, in the creepiest possible way, when me and my friend were asleep. I tested it. I laid in the dark, and waited, and slowly, a crack creak. If I got up and peeked, the door would shut again. I had to wait in the dark, still and quiet. Crack, shuffle 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 click clack shuffle shuffle. He wouldn't just leave trash wherever he felt like it. He would prepare castles, eat a tiny sliver of them, and then days after making them dump rectangular blocks of sludge into the sink overnight. Otherwise, he only left to buy alcohol, cigarettes, and go to wherever his pot dealer was. The place reeked, constantly. Not just pot, but even discolored drag stains from his almost always bare feet, yellow with huge discolored toenails. His attitude stunk worse. He would, on rare occasions, shuffle by the game table downstairs late at night if I had a D+D group over. He would sneer and always have this mutter self-important way of interrupting the group. Always in a slow creaky voice. I'm sorry. I couldn't help noticing. Grown men. Playing pretend. Then with a sickly smirk, shuffling off to do what grown men do. On another occasion, me and my group were discussing Star Wars as our RPG setting, and he creaked in interruption. I'm sorry, but aliens? You guys believe in actual aliens? They don't exist. It's superstition. Sickly laugh, wheeze, shuffle away. I call him Hipster Beard because the longer I lived there, the thicker and woollier his lumber sexual bird nest was on his face. There were discolored bits of stuff in it. His hands almost always trembled, and though he was years younger than me, he had the vigor of a rest home resident. Even his swift attempts to hurry upstairs back to his room while wheezing shuffles. But as he often told me, you can't objectively prove that smoking causes cancer, or affects the body at all. How many cigarettes? How many exactly? Logic is not on your side. Wheeze sneer shuffle away. Then the bedbugs came. For weeks before I thought I was getting rashes, some kind of unknown autoimmune disease. But then one night I rubbed under my arm and caught something so fat with blood it audibly made a click crunch as the stolen blood burst from my pinching motion. I took the specimen to the doctor to confirm it, bedbugs. The next few months were a sleep-deprived war with them. I placed coffee cans under both mine and my friends' beds under all legs and filled the coffee cans with diatomaceous earth, never used pool-grade, stuff dangerous to breathe. I applied thick layers of tape over any unused power outlet, every crack and seam I could find. I put trap lines under the doorways. They were slowed down, but I got into the habit of staring at my feet a lot. My bed was safe, but sitting or standing anywhere in the house, every few hours, I'd see a tiny little wiggling bit of motion, catch the thing, pinch it and crush it, and get angrier and angrier. You can't objectively prove where they're coming from. You're not coming in my room. I have my rights and I will call the police if you violate my rights. One day, when he was out of the house, on a seemingly once a year get drunk and high at someone else's house occasion, me and my friend had it. The door was locked, but we forced it open with a few stiff shoves. The inside was unimaginable to those who had not seen it. I visited /r/Neckbeard nests, but just about nothing compares. It was unlit in there, but with thick curtains over the window. The computer was still on, no screensaver, just glaring out at us. It was on Reddit, /r/atheism, not sure how much that matters, but I remember that detail, but I noticed round darts moving on the glow of the screen. Then my friend brought in a light. Bed bugs. Everywhere. On everything. Including our feet to the calves, latching onto everything. I do not exaggerate when I say that each square foot of every surface of that room had several dozen wiggling, hungry, missing Hipster Beard's meals blood-sucking parasites all over it. We found a huge stack of our missing plates and utensils, but with so much rotten food fusing it all together that we left it. And of course we confronted him about this. None of what you saw objectively matters. You violated my rights. I'm calling the police. We had enough. We said he's welcome to call, go ahead, that they get a kick out of the part stink everywhere in there and make their quota for drug busts. Then he started to cry. And my friend demanded I leave him alone. We had to abandon that house. We left everything behind, even clothes. We changed into new things in open downstairs plastic wrap, and spent thousands of dollars moving out into an apartment with everything new, escaping the bed bugs. To this day, I am still mad when I think of Hipster Beard and the way he took away a home, though I can't objectively prove that. I decided to look him up on Facebook. And his profile had a pity-seeking thing in it about how his family abandoned him because of his atheism and his intelligence. I was mad for days after that, for some reason. And started to check the floors. No bugs. Ask anyone who has suffered a bed bug infestation. They are horrible creatures. Having someone so stoned and drunk to care helping create a swarm of them would be a good horror movie premise.
The Gym Neckbeard by deleted. For a while, I've had a story that didn't quite fit in at Let's Not Meet, but didn't know where to put it. This sub is perfect. There are many places you expect to find neckbeards, like the Magic the Gathering tournaments, or the local video game store. You don't expect to find them at the local gym, and yet, there I was. This tale starts several years ago, when I relocated. I managed to score a nice apartment that was in a lower rent area. The neighbors were all young families or the elderly, so it was nice and quiet. Another selling point was I was right across the street from a small gym. I signed up the day after I moved in. The woman who processed my paperwork was in her 40s, bubbly and almost overly friendly. She was the owner, who, I later found out, was almost never in the gym. The gym had been started in the 70s by her uncle, and she pitched that it was a family-owned and run facility that was family-friendly. Everyone who worked there was a family member or family friend, she told me, including her son Todd. Todd, it appears, was on vacation when I joined up, and for a week or so I didn't see him. The first day I met him, I had looked at my bank account and realized the gym had double billed me at sign up. I was at the counter, talking to the girl who normally ran the front desk, Katie, for some time. She stepped away to get some paperwork, and suddenly a head appeared up over the edge of the counter. How to describe the face before me? Imagine the Gerber baby, with the twinkling eyes replaced by beady slits. The bottom of his face just melted into his chest. It wasn't that he had a second chin, he barely had a first one, a little lump that broke up the pudge that was his neck. His mouth was shaped like an inverted triangle, rarely closed, two front stained teeth on display. His facial hair would, over the months I was there, be a source of endless disgust to me. His mustache was a single row of hairs that clung to the top edge of his lip. They were long and curled over his top lip, into his mouth, and broke over his teeth in little curls. On his lump of a chin he had beach fuzz, punctuated with a few long curls that reminded me horribly of pubic hair. While most of his skin was pale, almost childlike, his cheeks had a few broken capillaries and a ruddy hue. To say the least, he had taken me by surprise. I said hi. His lizard-like eyes trailed down me and back up, and he made a noise in reply. Imagine the sound a cat makes moments before it decides to hawk up a hairball. Sort of HNNGH then, with a roll of his eyes he disappeared back under the counter. I was curious, and after my account was fixed, I peered around the countertop. Todd was wedged under the counter, sitting on a rocking floor chair, playing some sort of game on a laptop. To his right was a container of soda, to his left a snack. As far as why he answered the way he did, well, I would come to find out that I wasn't his type. During this time, I had befriended a neighbor, who we'll call Janice. I mentioned the gym and suggested that she join. She was hesitant, saying she had heard weird things about the place, but I stressed the location and low price, and she decided to join. I was with her that day, and when Todd heard a female voice, he again peered over the countertop. This time though, his beady little eyes lit up. He started struggling to his feet and said he would do the tour of the facility. Janice, you see, was a small woman. She stood maybe 5 foot tall, thin, very petite and flat-chested. From behind, she was often mistaken for a child. This, we would find, was Todd's favorite aesthetic. Janice, however, was a take-no-prisoners type, and she brushed him off, saying she would find her own way. We left to work out, not realizing that Todd was watching. Todd was always watching. The real run-ins with Todd would come later, but in the meantime, Todd had found himself an easier victim.
This guy planned our future together by praise to Gouda. Hi, this is a short but sweet story. Some backstory: I have red hair, don't worry, it'll make sense, I swear. This was junior year of high school. It was probably the second day of school? Maybe third? Anyway, obligatory, I'm on mobile and also I'm a shit storyteller, but here goes. So I was in English class. I was sitting next to a few friends, all females, I had made the year before, and we were listening to one of my friends talk about her summer. Now we were all in the back right corner. In comes Creep. He was originally seated in the front left corner, about 7 rows away. He somehow awkwardly made his way over to our group and tried to join in on the conversation. Now normally my group is pretty welcoming of all newbies, and we tried to do so with him as well, but he quickly managed to annoy all 4 of us. We would be listening to a friend talk and he would interrupt them and talk about some video game or try and tell a really shitty joke. Now I'm all for talking about video games and such, but not when I'm already listening to a friend talking. This went on for around 15 minutes where he would constantly interrupt us and then try to flirt with all 4 of us at the same time. We got sick of it real fast, so when the bell rang we quickly got rid of him. Flash forward to after school the same day. We get out of school at 2:15 and my bus home would come at 4:30, so I had some time to waste. I was also the last one to leave, so most of my friends had already gone home. I was walking around campus listening to music, waiting for time to go by. In comes this creepy guy again. He starts to follow me and trail me for around 3 minutes until he finally works up enough courage to come talk to me. He starts talking about school, then video games, then movies, then his mom, then homework, then I have no idea, but he wouldn't even let me say anything in response. He just kept talking on and on. Then it got worse. He mentioned his mom again and how she hates red-headed people. But, he says, I actually find them quite attractive, they are the only ones I date. Cue to me racking my brain for excuses to get out of this conversation and away from him as soon as possible. He then says the worst thing anyone has ever said to me in person: don't worry though. I'm sure when I bring you home to meet her in 6 months as my girlfriend, she'll love you just as much as I do now. I booked it. I think I stumbled something about needed to go to the restroom. Either way, I grabbed my shit and ran. He never came up to me after that, but that may be because every time I saw him I would speed walk away. I left that school 3 weeks later, so thankfully I didn't have to deal with him for an.
Let me introduce you to K by Moonhorse_musics. This is my first time posting here, or on Reddit at all, for that matter, so please excuse my shitty everything. I wanna tell the story of a guy I know. I wanna tell you about K. Granted, I won't tell you all the stories now. If you guys wanna know more, I am totally game to tell you more. I have so fucking many of them. I met him through another friend, way back in high school. See, I moved to this shitty little town with my family and I didn't know anyone, so when someone wanted to be friends with me, I was all about it. First was this guy I used to be friends with, super into Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff. I didn't get it, but if it makes dude happy, I'm game. One day, dude was like, oh, I know a guy who lives right near your new house. You should meet him. He's cool. That's how I was introduced to K. K was a neckbeard in the making at that point, but I'd never met one, so fuck all if I knew what a neckbeard was or anything. Back then, he was really thin, but had this crazy wavy hair that he hardly washed and could comb down with his own natural grease. Made myself sick with that one. Sorry. He wore the same few outfits all the time, too. Low-to gap cargo pants and very generic. This was a gift from a family member who obviously knows nothing about me shirts. We all have that one shirt. Don't lie, all I knew is that dude had some serious issues with anger, people, and video games. He was living with his grandmother back then, and still is, I believe, and she had rules about how long he could play games and all that. At the time, this struck me as really odd, since he was 16 when we met. I later found out that, if it wasn't for these rules about games, he would never stop playing them. Like, ever. As in, at one point, she had to take his game controllers and lock them up so he couldn't get to them or he wouldn't do any of his school work. Once he knew where I lived, one of the things he'd do is he would come over to hang out. This means that he'd show up with whatever PS2 game he got and his memory card and co-opt my fucking system for literal hours. No amount of coercing would get him off of the fucking game. I witnessed him play Dirge of Cerberus for, no joke, 5 hours. The whole time it was the best game ever. The only way to make him stop, I learned, was to tell him that my mom was getting pissed, and in some cases, she totally was, and he'd have to go. So, just for some basic clarity, I'm older than K by a few years. I was out of school long before he was, and I'll never forget this. One time, at fucking 9 in the morning, someone starts ringing my doorbell and knocking on the door. I was passed the fuck out, as one does when one has an off day from work, and I was justifiably pissed/confused about who the hell is freaking out on my porch. I open the door and, lo and behold, it's K. He fucking skipped school to come over and play games because he really wanted to play the new Inuyasha fighting game, but he couldn't because his grandmother was, and I quote, being a total bitch. I was fucking floored. Not because he cut school, shit I did that all the time, but because that's what our friendship had come to. I was a utility service for him to play fucking shitty video games. I told him that I was not in the mood for having company and he'd have to go. Now, when K doesn't get his way, two things happen, depending on who you are. With me, I'm bigger than him. Not by a lot, granted, but I guess enough to be imposing. Bullshit. However, if he thought he was above you, he'd fly into an impotent rage the likes of which I have never witnessed outside of a much younger sibling trying to convince me of the terrorist-like behavior of withholding a cookie. He'd scream, stomp, throw things, then sulk off somewhere to quietly seethe about how not being able to play Final Fantasy was going to kill him. I didn't get that. What he did with me was he'd huff and puff and sigh and say things like, oh, well, I just, really wanted to play this game, but I guess I never will. I can't tell you how many times I've heard him do that shit. It's fucking infuriating. Makes you wanna slap the bastard. The next time he pulled the knocking on the door and showing up unannounced shit, I didn't answer the door, thinking I was fucking Joe Smartman over here. I'm a fucking moron. Never underestimate the power of an obsessed neckbeard. He was out there, knocking on the door, for a fucking hour. An hour. Holy shit, man. I can't even. Now, so far, he only ticks a few of the neckbeard boxes, but once I got to know him more, shit really hit the fan and all the boxes get filled fast. It was only after knowing him for a few months that he decided to confide in me about his fanfiction. It is, exactly what you think it is. Loads of anime girls who have to be rescued from horrible villains by obvious self-insert Garys to guys who then, of fucking course, get the girl. I can think of the plot of several of them, mainly because they have the same plot, but they were always about subjects like Inuyasha, or Yu-Gi-Oh!, and a few of them were about wrestling, which I didn't think anyone even watched anymore. The more you fucking know. The one that sticks out the most was that he wrote several stories about this girl he had a thing for. She was real. Real people, in his fanfic. It was super cringy and awkward. This girl, whom we'll call Mel. Sure. She was kinda popular, from what I understood. I never met her. We didn't go to the same school or anything. I later learned, from some friends that Kay and I have in common, that he hardly knows her as well. He mostly just loved her from afar, he legit said that once, and wrote really creepy sex fictions about her. If there was a game where you could make a female character, he made Mel, and himself, and they were, you know, totally in love. One time, back when Midnight Club 3 was still big, so, now? Ha. I'm so fucking funny, he insisted on using my file to make some cars. I'm okay with that, mainly because unlocking takes time, and I know what it's like to be frustrated when you want to make something. So, he made two. One was an El Camino because he really wants one, I don't know why, and the other was some really over-the-top Lambo that, in his words, this is for Mel. I put her name on it and everything. She'll have to love me now. What the fuck? But how could you know all these things? You ask, confused as to why I could have such horrible information stored in my head. Oh, I know, because Kay would constantly break his laptop, and he'd guilt me into fixing it. So, combine a little I don't wanna fix this fucker's laptop with the 900 desktop icons, monster, and creepy Hensher wallpaper for the 50th fucking time with curiosity and generally kinda a little shit, and you have my digging. See, his PC was virused to fuck all and back, and it was a matter of time before this motherfucker just caught fire, so while the antivirus was pushing that boulder up a hill for the millionth time, I went digging. He saved all kinda stuff. Load of porn and porn games, guess where the viruses came from? I know, you're fucking shocked, but also a load of chat logs. I shouldn't have done it. A better man wouldn't have done it. An honest man would say no. Fuck it. I opened and read them all. I bit my tongue so fucking hard I'm shocked that I can still talk. These are gold. I didn't read in depth while there, but I emailed them all to myself for study later. I don't think I still have them, but on that day I learned some things about Kay. He likes anime girls, he likes making real women into anime girls. He is always king hero, he likes tentacles, and he really likes anal. Woo boy I. It was like learning that your best friend, whom you've known for years, has been on meth the whole time. But with butt stuff and tentacle monsters. That, boys and girls, is just the tip of this iceberg. I'm only glancing over some stuff because, man, there are places to go into detail. Let me know if you want more and I'll totally tell you more.
I accidentally dated a neckbeard by Peachy_Muse. So my freshman year of high school, I was really bad at saying no to people. I still kinda suck at it, but it's better now. So there was this guy, tall white dude, kinda nerdy, not the best looking guy but who cares, and he was actually super sweet. He was a year ahead of me. We became good friends and at some point, he asked me out. I can't honestly say I liked him like that, but again, not great at saying no. So I figured, why not? He seemed nice and we had known each other for a few months. Here's where it goes downhill. It was really cute at first. I'm 5 feet 8 inches and he was like 6 feet 4 inches, so great hugs. I had all his hoodies, he smelled nice, he was a little cheesy but generally sweet as ever. Until he started having a problem with my guy friends. I've always hung out with a lot of guys, not for any reason, but I would just happen to make friends with dudes in elementary school and we still are friends now. At first, it was just a little jealousy, which I get, but then he started getting angry with me for it. The night that he crossed a line was when I sent him a text that wasn't for him. It said, "I miss hanging out with you, friend's gender neutral name." He was like, who the frick is that? I knew you were a W/or. I knew it. You're too pretty to ever be into someone as nice as I am. All women are the same. My friend that the text was meant for was a girl. A straight girl. I said that because I'm bi. She had moved the year before and I missed her. And she had a unisex name. I told him that and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry my love, I made a mistake. You're beautiful." I said, "So I'm not a W/or? Thanks, babe." He says he didn't mean it like that and I said that I think that we should just stop being together. Because this wasn't the first time his neckbeardness had shown itself, but it was the first time that he called me out of my name and that was like the last straw. The next day at school he gets on his knees in front of me and begs me to take him back. Like, in front of people. High schoolers and teachers and cameras. A 6 feet 4 inches male in the middle of the floor. Just chillin', like what the frick? I looked like an A/hole for saying no, but I did it anyway. Some people stopped liking me after that because they believed his story, which was basically saying that he forgot our 3-month anniversary and I got mad, which was not the case. We didn't date long enough for anniversaries in my opinion anyways. But most of my friends found it hilarious. TL, doctor, my ex was in the closet Neckbeard and he called me a W/or. Edit, forgot to mention, he's graduated now and my friend found his Instagram through someone they both followed. He's a hardcore brony now. Edit 2, addressing some of the comments. I have no issue with guys liking girly shows because some of them are actually good, and I still watch kids shows sometimes because it makes me feel nostalgic, and I admit that. It's just the fact that he is sexually attracted to talking ponies that is creepy as frick.
MillionaireBeard, The Prodigal Son by JackEastriver. MillionaireBeard is the tale of my uncle, who possesses no actual neckbeard, doesn't even have the testosterone for that, but boy is he girthy. He's also a bit older than your average neckbeard, but trust me, he fits right in with them. He's the kind of guy who's right about everything no matter what and is capable of walking but uses the motorized carts at the grocery store anyway. He sees people as walking ATM machines, uncaring of their thoughts and feelings as humans, concerned only with what he can get out of them. During the e-election he claimed Trump was the Antichrist, but after he won, he slapped Trump bumper stickers everywhere. You know the type. A supreme narcissist with zero regard for other people's stuff, highly delusional, claims something new about himself every week, everything from designing a swimwear line, to meeting a million famous people in bars to beating up Tank Abbott in a fight. Edit, he also loves flaunting his military career, even though he was dishonorably discharged in like week 2 after stealing a Jeep. My father has loads of stories about growing up with this man, but those aren't really what we're here for. This starts with his other brother, who suffered from a head condition as the result of a surgery gone wrong and won a settlement for it. It's a sad story, but I won't go into it here. Anyway, getting a settlement sounded like easy money to MillionaireBeard and he hit upon a genius idea. He applied for a job at a hardware chain and worked there for exactly 1 day. When he pulled a stack of doors down on himself during a night shift, he claimed they were improperly stacked and collapsed on him. He immediately filed a lawsuit and started bragging about his forthcoming riches. He waited years for the company to file a settlement, which they eventually did, but I suspect it was just to get rid of him. Shortly after that, his father, my grandfather, a gruff old crab fisherman, was dying of cancer, and the family had to shame him into putting his schedule of doing nothing on hold and stuffing his fat butt into a plane and coming down for 2 measly days. Grandpa's history with MB was frustrating. He'd given him cars and things before and he'd only gone out and wrecked them, fitting the stereotype of that kid who has zero responsibility for possessions he didn't earn. Or anything else for that matter, and the only contact MB had made with his father in the last 5 years was begging him for money to get his car out of impound. Great son all owned. Gramps decided not to leave him anything in the will because he'd just F it up anyway, and nobody blamed him for it. To this day, MB believes my parents forged the will to write him out. His narcissism tends to prevent him from seeing the blindingly obvious, that he's a pain to everyone around him. Anyway, fast forward a few years and this is where things start to get good. His relationship with his mother, my grandmother, was always sorta weird. MB, like all neckbeards, never really grew up. He was always the mama's boy, always needing her to bail him out of trouble. But now his mother was undergoing cancer treatment. What's her little angel to do? Why, nothing different of course. While I was staying with her in the chemo facility, he was still calling and begging her to sort out his personal petty financial problems for him. This was the first personal exposure I had to his personality and it floored me how insensitive the guy was, but it would get worse. After chemo, the cancer ended up getting worse and Grandma was put under hospice care, with my family, especially my mom, a nurse, practically moving into her house to provide 24/7 care. Back when MB was visiting Grandpa for those 2 measly days, he'd made a series of bizarre comments to Dad about Grandma's house, stating that this was all gonna be his soon. Grandma dying was apparently his retirement plan, since Grandpa had written him out of the will and that settlement money was sunk into a gaudy RV that he now lived in and who knows what else, probably beer, mostly. So with the smell of an inheritance in the wind, he loaded up the ERV and made the trek down, and set about being the worst house guest a cancer patient could ask for. The passive aggression was off the charts. And every time the hospice folks would talk with the family, he made sure to loudly proclaim that this isn't how she wanted to pass. And we were doing everything all wrong. Despite the fact that he hadn't been earned for her cancer treatment over the last year and had no clue what she would want. Despite this he would keep relating to us mystery conversations he claimed to have had with her that were never corroborated. Stuff like she wants me to have everything, because you tricked Dad into stiffing me and she told me you guys are torturing her. It was at this point that my father, having patiently endured his overbearing mannerisms for the sake of his mother, was nearly fed up. His worst habits included things like promising to show up at noon to watch over things so my parents could get some sleep, only to show up 12 hours later whistling merrily and claiming to have been sidetracked by an estate sale. When he did watch over Grandma, he would drag one of her antique chairs in from the dining room, slam his enormous frame down into it, and start eating raw onions and stuff like that in front of her. This was a man who loved his smelly foods. He'd then try to hold conversations with her, being apparently oblivious to the fact that her mind was almost gone, his pungent onion breath wafting over her as he'd loudly keep repeating "Hi Mom" over and over. When she wouldn't respond, like I said, she wasn't all there anymore, he would take it as a personal insult and make a huge production out of storming outside and moping until someone fed him with attention. When she finally passed, he realized she had not drawn up a will. She didn't want to have to deal with it, I suppose, and so the law was that the estate would be split 50-50 among the brothers. But when it came time to decide who would handle it, that's when things got hostile on his end. He'd send long-winded meandering texts to my parents, containing statements like "I'm mourning the loss of my best friend and mentor, so forgive any lapse in courtesy," paired with "I'm taking you for everything I can get, I'm not hiring any potent lawyer from down the street, I'm getting a big incorporated guy, I've got enough money to choke 3 horses." And as the oldest after all, the totality of the estate is my birthright, because it's still biblical times, right? There's tons more hilarious ones, but I'm sadly not the one with the records of them. Anyway, it came time for all this to go to court, so a judge could determine who got to handle the estate. I was there as a character witness or something, I don't recall exactly, and this was actually the first time I'd seen MB in person since he'd visited Grandpa, as I had been away at college most of the time. All the prior details of the story were related to me by multiple family members. Dad showed up, attired fittingly, he's a college professor and dresses like one, and MB showed up looking like he'd just gotten back from a 3-week camping trip, complete with a boonie hat he kept rolling up in his hands and possessing a finely aged body odor. That big incorporated lawyer MB hired? He was some local guy from down the street who looked like he'd stumbled out of a bar at 9 a.m. I wasn't in the courtroom for the whole thing, but the transcripts have quite a few golden moments. Let's just say my dad's history with the law and his brother's history with the law are vastly different. The judge would ask about his history with DUIs and he'd launch into this whiny drawl of a voice and make puppy dog eyes at the judge. Well, I may have had a couple. The actual number was something like 10 or more, often with weapons found on him, and I'm not sure if that was even over his lifetime or the last few years. Another great line, if having a few drinks makes me an alcoholic, then I guess I'm an alcoholic. We still quote that one from time to time. The judge decided to appoint a neutral third party to handle the estate, and MB at first acted like he wanted to buy the house, promising he would as soon as it went up for sale, and practically moved in. Suddenly, when it came time to put up the money, his funds mysteriously ran out and he stopped squatting, but not before pilfering a few things from the place. He did his best to drag out the proceedings and milk every penny he could, but a couple years later the process was over and he got his share of the money. He needed it too. He'd somehow accumulated more DUIs, this time with felony possession of a gun, and had his license permanently revoked. Since he can't drive, he spends most of his time at the bar, pretending to be a fisherman. He wears his late father's stuff like a costume, which basically makes him a fisherman too, right? And alienating all of his dad's friends to the point where I don't think there's a tavern left in town that hasn't banned him. My parents are moving to another state, leaving my dear old uncle behind. The millionaire with no money, no friends, no driver's license, no job, and living out of an RV on the edge of town. Living the dream.
The Tale of StarshipBeard, or How I Outed a Classmate as a Creep by Hello There, Gorgeous. Gather round, children, and I shall tell you a tale. The Tale of StarshipBeard, shortened to SP for convenience's sake. I call him StarshipBeard because he shared a name with a certain starship captain from way back in the day. Before we get started, I want to say that I'm on mobile, so sorry about formatting. I also want to set the scene a little bit. The year was 2016. I, Gorgeous, in this story, was and am a very artsy person, so in high school I was in drama, dance, painting, etc., and SP was in my drama class. I didn't really know SP, but I had never had any issues with him, so we just coexisted. He and I were about the same height, 5'7", but he was built heavier than me. I'm sorta willowy. Now SP was already cringy for a high school junior, but he also was obsessed with Naruto. He had the headband, the fingerless gloves, the kimono-style robe, the delusions of ninja grandeur, everything. He also had a girlfriend who was equally cringy, and who he treated poorly. He would openly flirt with and catcall other girls in front of her and would belittle her interests. So, on to the story. My drama class had a free day, so we decided to go into the auditorium and play sardines. If you've never played, one person goes to hide while everyone else looks for them. Once a person finds the hider, that person hides with them. And so it goes until the last seeker finds everyone. The hiding place chosen for this game was a smallish storage room in the wings. Upon finding it, I squeezed in with everyone else and waited. A moment later someone slid into the room and pressed right up behind me. The room was pitch black and we were packed in tight as, well, sardines. We stood and waited. And then, something grabbed my butt cheek under my skirt. I gasped a little bit, cheesy, I know, and froze. The person behind me let out a soft "ooh" and started squeezing. The hand soon grew bored of just ass and started making its way between my legs. And, as if this wasn't terrible enough, the owner of that hand leaned forward and whispered, "This is a really nice ass. Who does it belong to? Other girl's name?" I was horrified. The hand got as far as my perineum before the door opened and we all spilled out into the light. When I turned around to face this gropester, I saw that it was SB. His face brightened up and he said, "Ah, it was you, gorgeous." I was so shocked I almost ran out just then. Almost. You see, I had recently gotten out of an emotionally/sexually abusive relationship, and after I was done feeling sorry for myself, I decided that nobody would ever touch me without my consent again. So I got pissed. And I stood up to SB. I stepped forward and punched him in the sternum as hard as I could, so hard that it made a thump sound and he staggered back a few steps. Every eye in the auditorium turned on me, shocked. "What the hell?" SB shouted. "If you ever grope me like that again I'll make you swallow your fucking teeth," I screeched, before storming out. Later that day I heard SB complaining to his girlfriend about girls are so mean to me. It was supposed to be a compliment. "I'm so glad you're different from those bitches and whores." Gross. SB never spoke to me after that. In fact, he stayed a good 3 feet away at all times. He wasn't really bullied before, but after this he was. People in my class started calling him Captain Handsy and wouldn't let him be alone in the classroom/auditorium with other girls. Thanks for reading. I have a couple other stories about him and others to share, so if you'd like to read more let me know.
Neckbeard at comic book store tells me I'm a fake fan for not reading the comics while I was there looking for them by Shelly_D. I apologize if my grammar is bad. I'm from Germany. So someday a few weeks ago me and my friend went to this comic book store after I got crazy over the Marvel movies and watched them all in 1 week. I was so excited, since I wanted to read more about all those heroes I adore and even worked extra to get more money to buy a few. We got into the store. It was pretty empty but full of nerd stuff. I was so happy to be there and marked this store as my favorite so far. So I looked through the comics there, searching for the ones I like the most when Neckbeard approaches me with a "Well, hello. What are you looking for?" I looked up for a second and noted the full-on Neckbeard style with a pretty nice Captain America shirt and a fedora. I told him I was looking for Captain America maybe, but Iron Man would be nice too. I heard him gasp. I later realized I probably shouldn't have said that. It was quite clear he was his favorite hero. He pressed to talk about Captain America and then asked me what my favorite comic was so far. I told him that I haven't read one yet but I'm looking to buy my first but can't decide on which one yet. His face went blank. He talked to himself but it was obvious he wanted me to hear him, of course. It's one of these again who claim to be a fan but have only ever watched the movies, and now I was standing there, a few comics in my hand I wanted to buy, and got told I'm a fake fan for not reading the comics while I was there buying them. He just awkwardly walks away, very disappointed, and I was left behind very confused. I still bought the comics anyways, but it was a strange experience for sure.
I just wanted a Halsey CD. By ThatRandomGayKid. So, a few years ago when I was the lovely age of 19, I was super into music like Halsey, Melanie Martinez, Marina and the Diamonds, etc. I was a special girl who thought my music taste was, special. Anyway, I was in Target with a friend of mine while visiting my dad and grandparents over my younger sister's Christmas break. We were just messing around, having fun, as friends do, but I really wanted Halsey's Badlands CD, so we made a pit stop in the electronics section of the store. No big swig, right? Well, for a normal human being, it wouldn't have been, but for Cheetah Guts Mickey 3, me wanting music I enjoyed was just too much. As I am standing, debating on if I want the deluxe version or just the regular, The cum jar hoarder slowly approaches me as though I was an antelope and he was a lopsided cheetah with major skin problems. So this hairy, chicken broth BO-smelling weirdo takes it upon himself to go through some albums, decide where we were and scoff every single time I asked my friend a question. The questions were simple, along the lines of, do you think I should go with this or this, and I asked her if I should grab a Rolling Stones album, since they had a greatest hits selection and hey, I dig them. He continues to scoff and I finally had enough, so I ask him if Terry's a problem and he responds, invisible thesaurus in hand, and says to me with the most unironic face, I simply cannot understand how someone as dashing as you can be into such records fit for the simpletons. He was being serious. Sure, I'd seen it online, but I never once thought these barbarians made their strange habits known to the public eye. I was dumbfounded. I held in my hand an album by one of the most iconic bands to grace the music scene and he says, such utter horseshit? I couldn't help myself. I burst into laughter and just shook my head, turning away. But the son of the Mountain Dew Empire did not relent. He continued, despite my clear apprehension at his statement. He takes a step closer and I swear, I can see the dandruff specks falling from his unwashed hair, beneath that stupid trilby with frayed edges and fading pinstripes. He leans against the record stand and does what I assume is his version of a smirk. It kind of looked like he was attempting to audition for the Joker in The Dark Knight, but I digress. He speaks to me again, taking up precious time that I am unable to get back, prattling on about how he can show me good music and he can spare my delicacy. Am I a fucking Swedish chocolate bar? I say no firmly and then tell him to leave me be. At this point, I was genuinely uncomfortable. I did not accept or approve of his advances and I just wanted to be left alone. He rolls his eyes, letting out a sigh that smells like cat vomit mixed with breaks that have seized on a winter morning and I have to hold my breath to keep from gagging. He continues on his rant, mentioning this and that, talking about how he is clearly superior to a female such as myself considering he enjoys real music. I was fed up at this point and turned to him, asking if he enjoys real hygiene or if he just bathes in cow shit while letting himself fester in a pile of garbage. This caused him to pause and I could see the rusted gears turning in his abnormally shaped head. Thankfully, this gave me enough time to escape his sticky carpal tunnel clutches and flee the scene. Of course, me and my friend laughed about the wild ordeal over some well-deserved IHOP and then, we jammed to the deluxe. I made an executive decision, it was truly life or death, version of Halsey's album, but even after these years, I can still see those beady eyes under those somehow greasy brows and that smile that just looked like corn on the cob.
My year with a stinky neckbeard by deleted. This post from another thread. I was told to post here. Trigger warning for topic of abuse, but I figured you folks might enjoy this. This is a pretty long story and actually felt really good to type out. I was in a pretty bad place after breaking up with my longtime boyfriend, which involved 6 years of abuse, that I kind of took the first thing that popped up. I was 19 at the time. We will call him D and he was 24. D had been an okay friend for years that I knew from high school and I figured, why the hell not? We got along decent and would talk about Tolkien and DC comics and whatnot. Big mistake on my part. Dude could not hold a job, lived with his mom, thought showering wasn't really a regular thing, criticized me for believing things I believed in. For example, I love learning about various cultures and the world. He would state that the only real culture was the Native American culture because he was something like 1/32 Native. And my people, I'm pretty much Irish and Norwegian background, ruthlessly slaughtered his people. We will ignore the fact he was an American whose ethnicity was mostly German and Polish. If I liked something mainstream he would make fun of me. I love LOTL, but he said that I only liked it to get attention. When I discovered the band Mumford & Sons it was only because you heard them on the sheeple radio. He always proclaimed he had some sort of illness that he had to eat every few hours and it had to be what he was craving. Not something in the same food group category but literally the exact thing he was craving. If he was craving Snickers, he needed to eat the Snickers. When I asked him what it was called, he said he found it on WebMD and that I wouldn't understand. I told him that he should go to the doctors to get it checked out then and he said that he wasn't seeing a doctor because it was a rigged system and he was smart enough to self-medicate himself. He would make fun of me for what college courses I took and said that college was for losers and sheeple. Due to not having a job, he had no money unless his mom gave it to him. Every date I paid for, and it was usually embarrassing because he would not dress for the date. I'm from the city but moved out to the rural area with my family when I was a teenager, which was how I met him. He would constantly go on dates wearing cut-off jeans, cut-up shirts, and camo. He also had a blaze orange hunting jacket he wore all the fucking time. He still lived in my old hometown when I moved to go back to the city for school, so it became a long-distance relationship. If I wanted to see him I had to drive an hour there to visit because he didn't have his license or a car because the fucking DMV just hates me. He really couldn't drive to save his life. When the opportunity presented itself for him to visit me, he would instead take the ride to a friend's house to play board games or video games. But I was still in the mindset that I wasn't good enough for anything better, so I should stick with him or else I'll have no one. He began to turn verbally abusive later on in the relationship. He would tell me things like no one else will ever love you, or if you want my friends/family/co-workers to like you then you should actually try to be pretty. I believed him because I had went through the same sort of abuse in my relationship before him that had lasted nearly 6 years. I was so used to it. Disgustingly, it actually made me a bit comfortable because I knew that what he was saying was right in my mind. He was trying to shape me into the perfect elven princess so impress his friends. He wanted me to be skinny enough so I could wear a Princess Leia bikini. I was a bit overweight, and although his ragtag bunch of friends were well into the obesity range, I was a disgusting slob because I couldn't control my weight. They all had medical WebMD issues as to why they were big. None of their weight issues were their faults, of course. The reality really began to sink in that this was going nowhere when he came to live with me and my male roommate during the summer. The whole point of it was so he could get a job. He swore up and down that he could not get hired in our small hometown, and so I figured it would be easy to find a job in the city. Problem was he wouldn't look for one. He would eat all of the food and not save me any after I was done with my 9-hour-long shift. He would intrude on my roommate's privacy and expect me to pay for him if he wanted to go eat fast food or wanted a new Magic the Gathering card set. He constantly wanted to buy Magic the Gathering booster packs or whatever they were. If I didn't buy them, he would pout. Literally pout. Then he started throwing out food because I don't like it or my mom makes this better than you. He said he was trying to help me lose weight by eating all of our food. He refused to get a jab because he didn't want to bike anywhere, and the jabs were all during the day when he could be sleeping or at night when he would want to play video games. He was literally draining me money-wise and physically. If he wanted sex, I just let him have it because, again, that was what I was used to. Although I wasn't comfortable, he would call me names of video game or anime characters in bed. I told him it bothered me, and he said that it was the only way he could finish if he thought I was someone else. I finally kicked him out after a month when I couldn't afford him and was so tired of paying for him. I remember on the way to bring him to his mom's I stopped at a gas station to buy $30 in gas and only gas since I only had $50 for the rest of the week. He picked up a candy bar and said, "Can I get this?" I laughed, thinking he was joking, and said no. He literally, no joke, started to pout and said please with an attempt at puppy dog eyes and his lips out like a duck. I had never been so disgusted in a person than I had in that moment. I shook my head, told to put it back, but he placed it in front of the register at the gas station and gave me a smug look. I looked at the cashier and said I wasn't paying for it and it was his to pay for. I then walked out after paying for gas and went to the car. He followed me, got in, slammed the door, and started, no joke, crying. All I wanted was some chocolate. First you kick me out for no reason and now you won't even buy me chocolate. He sobbed the rest of the way home. I wanted to throw up in my mouth. As I dropped him off, he asked for the last 20 I had to go buy a used video game. I literally just drove away. The next 6 months I would visit him on and off, but not nearly as much as I did before, maybe 3 times a month. In that time I would maybe talk to him once a week. After that embarrassing situation in the gas station I stopped caring. I will admit I should have just dumped him then and there, but it got to the point where I didn't really think about him. I didn't cheat, but I flirted randomly with people, but nothing too serious. Honestly, I wasn't looking for anyone at the time but was working on fixing myself. I quit smoking and regular drinking, my grades became amazing, I ate better and felt better. I realized I had major body issues and I was never as ugly or as big as I thought I was. As I fixed myself, found new friends, and was just having a great time, I would often forget I even had a boyfriend until he would randomly call to ask for money or telling me about his new magic cards. If I told him about my new friends, he would tell me that it didn't interest him. He wanted to sext all the time, but I told him I wasn't comfortable with sexting. He finally let it go because, according to him, it was easier to jerk off to porn than try to find me attractive. Then my roommate's brother moved in, we will call him R, who I've always had a crush on but thought he would never ever go for me, and he showed me attention. Actual attention that I had never really received before. He didn't start the conversation complaining about sheeples but instead asked how my day was. He would ask if I needed rides to places and he would joke around with me. He asked me about my interests and seemed genuinely interested in them. We would go on walks together. He would ask me all the time why I didn't just break up with D, but I would just shrug. I didn't realize at the time that I was trying to be with me, as I thought I could never have such a handsome, sweet, supportive, wonderful person. D decided to get a job up where he lived around November, almost a year after we started dating, and began to save some money. It wasn't anything major, just a sub-shop admin wage, but it was something. Good for him, I was pretty happy for him. Until his mom calls one day screaming at me. I finally got her to calm down and ask her what was wrong. Apparently, D told her that I was making him pay me $500 for when he lived with me. I told her that certainly wasn't true and I didn't expect any money from him. His mom is a wonderful lady and I still love her to bits. We had a long conversation afterwards and she actually helped me realize that it might be better if we broke up. She said she realized that D had a lying problem but didn't want to believe that he would lie about me. She told me how he would tell her that I would withhold food from him and how he had a job when he lived with me but I made him give all his money to me. She said he needed to grow up now and that she didn't want to see me stuck in the process. She admitted to me he was getting kicked out in February. I told her good luck with that and I loved her and I hoped to see her owned. She gave me her blessing and I figured that was that. Now it just came to finding the strength to break up with him. D called a few days later and told me he was coming up at 3 p.m. that day. I was actually excited that I would be able to sit him down and talk to him and explain why I wanted to break up with him. By this point he had no idea it was going to happen. Well, 3 passes, and soon 4, and soon 5, and finally at 8 p.m. he shows up with wilted flowers. I asked why he was late and he told me that him and his buddies went out to play some magic. And that he forgot he was supposed to come over. I was so stunned that when he told me to come to the car that I did. Turns out, we were going on a date and he was paying but his friend who drove him was coming too. Both were dressed to impress. D wore his favorite magic tee and his friend was wearing a stained Metallica shirt and both smelled like they had been trapped in a sauna for hours. We went to Red Lobster, they both ordered apps and huge meals. I tried to keep things cheap because I, for whatever reason, felt guilty spending his money. The whole time they were talking in such a degrading manner about our waitress. They ordered drinks and each ordered desserts. Lo and behold, when the check came, D had forgot his wallet at home and his friend didn't have any cash because D said he would pay for his friends too. Do you see where this is going? Yup, that was a $150 dinner I paid for. They drove back to the apartment and D expected to spend the night and have his friend sleep on the couch. As I sat fuming in the backseat and D and his friend sat up front, they were talking about what was the best way to have filthy sex and they asked me if I wanted to finally try anal. I told them both to fuck off and go home. I got out of the car, slammed the door, and didn't look back. They stayed outside for a half hour calling me but I was finally done. I broke up with him through text message a couple days later. I know, what a bitch move, but fuck it, I didn't care. and I began dating a month later and I couldn't be happier. We are engaged now and have a baby due at the end of the month. I've never felt better or happier in all my life. Makes me feel worth something and he makes sure I am always okay. He never doubts my thoughts and thinks I am doing great things with my life. We both have stable jobs, we both enjoy a healthy sex life, and both love each other's company. D is still living up in the country. He still doesn't have a GF, and last I heard from him he was telling his co-workers that he was casting a spell on me so I would have a miscarriage and telling everyone who comes in that R is not the father because I was too much of a slut to know who the father was. His mom did kick him out and I know he lives in a small apartment by himself. Still no license. My younger sister who still lives there says that everyone in her grade, freshman in high school, calls him the stinky gross sub guy and it's considered a bad day if he makes you sub. TL Doctor dated a stinky, abusive, moneyless neckbeard for a year. Found someone better. Want nothing to do with magic. The Gathering.
Neckbeard duels my friend for me by PutRedditOnNokia. 2 years ago me and my friend who I named Jay for this story were hanging out in a GameStop. I was picking up a copy of Final Fantasy 15 for the PS4, and I convinced Jay to tag along. We looked like we were a couple granted, but he was mostly wandering the shelves. I was at the checkout as Jay walked up next to me, and there was 4 people in front of us. Then, we heard "Hello madam, are you one of the rare girls who avidly plays video games?" from behind us. Both me and Jay turned to see the Neckbeard. The Neckbeard was scrawny and was shorter than I was. Granted I was above 6 feet, so it didn't really count, had greasy black hair and a massive beard that resembled Sean from Fallout 4. And of course, he was wearing the infamous fedora. I told him I did enjoy playing video games, and him asking which. I told him Final Fantasy and Bethesda games were probably my favorite, and then he said he'd buy me the copy of FFXV. I declined, because he seemed like a legitimate nice guy, and I felt guilty taking money from strangers. He kept trying to force it until we got up to the counter, where he pushed Jay aside and slammed his credit card onto the counter. I told him I was going to pay for it myself and he didn't need to. Finally, Jay stepped in telling him to piss off. He was furious at this act, and the Neckbeard started saying stuff such as "You're a fuckboy and learn to treat a woman right." We got out of the store and Neckbeard followed suit. He kept verbally harassing Jay saying he was a terrible person to be a boyfriend. 2 things, he had a girlfriend for 5 years, and that girlfriend wasn't me. Jay snapped and turned around shoving Neckbeard backwards, to cause him to trip over the curb. The Neckbeard, as I said before, was scrawny, and couldn't be over 5 feet 8 inches. Meanwhile Jay was around 6 feet 9 inches to 6 feet 10 inches at that time, and when you're laying flat on the ground at a semi-muscular giant, you wouldn't want to mess around. Jay raised his foot up to the Neckbeard's face, where he shouted, "I yield. I shall call off the duel." He got up on his feet and said to Jay that if he dared to hurt me, he'd hunt him down and kill him swiftly and make it look like an accident. Despite that, neither of us have ever seen him since.
SuperCon Neckbeards by Sieko-Valantin. I don't know why, but I attract the worst of people for some reason. And here's a story about one of those kinds of people. A neckbeard. Let me describe this neckbeard, who we will call Towel, because he makes all the girls dry. He was maybe just under 6 feet tall, which is something someone would find attractive, had he been attractive. He was just about 300 pounds. He had on the usual leather trench coat, fedora, fingerless gloves, overly tight leather pants, and a neckbeard that would put a bearded dragon to shame. While this is usual of neckbeards, he also had a foam katana strapped to his waist, shades on his face, and nunchucks hanging from his belt. I think he was going for Ninja or Blade the Vampire. IDK. I, on the other hand, was wearing shorts, lawn socks, Converse, and an oversized hoodie. I was young and wanted to blend in, so I decided to look cute. I was about 5 feet 4 inches at the time, having been, 15? Yes, I was 15. I was mature for my age and all, with boobs bigger than life and a way of talking myself out of anything. I had ditched my mom to go walk around because her feet were hurting and I didn't want to be a bother to her. I was looking around the booths and exploring the diversity of things I could buy. From manga, to plushies, to posters, to pillows. I think I had stopped to look at the map of the place, to decide where I wanted to go, when I felt someone pat my shoulder. I turned around to see Towel standing there, and it was seconds later that his smell hit me. Like a moldy room that's been closed off for 2 years with piles of rotten produce inside. He smiled this yellow-toothed smile at me and pulls out his phone. Suddenly, there's one arm around my waist and he's taking a picture of us. I'm stunned while he's looking at the picture he just took. He frowns and looks at me. You didn't smile. Are you a tsundere? I was caught off guard. I asked if I knew him and he tells me no. He pulls me in for another picture, but way too close to his rolls of fat and stink. Let me tell you, this man has to be at least 40. The last thing I expected was for him to turn his head while I was faking my best smile. I see it in the camera and turn to him, to see him puckering his big, dry, Cheeto-stained lips at me. And then it hits me, he's trying to kiss me. I fucking scream and he takes off running when people turn to look at us. I see someone chase him off down the aisle while security asks me if I'm okay. I tell security what happened and the dude is chased down, dragged to the front entrance, and kicked out.
The Legbeard I Fear to This Day by Poetic Nerd 1990. I'm actually having a hard time writing this out. This was 9 years ago and it still gives me anxiety. I'm on my phone so forgive any formatting mistakes. Cast: WrestleBeard, Legbeard. Me, Weebin Baby Legbeard /op. Mom, my fucking hero. Ollie, my awesome sister. Tink, fellow victim of S. Anyway, here goes. I first met WB when I was 18, she was also 18, and we were going to church camp. Group was aged 16 to 18. She was the only other person wearing black and I introduced myself. She liked Oingo Boingo and wrestling, and wrote /fiction about wrestlers. I loved manga and yaoi fanfics, so needless we became friends quickly. After camp I met and became close to her friend Tink. Tink is the sweetest girl you could ever meet, and ended up getting an apartment with WB. They lived together for 10 months before Tink suddenly moved back to Maine and wouldn't tell me why. She later told me WB was abusing her for 10 months. Fast forward 6 months. WB and I start hanging out again. She tells me all these horrible things about Tink and how she's a liar and really trying to turn me against her. WB gets me a job where she worked and we applied for an apartment across the road from work. Red flag I missed, she insisted on putting each down as life partners on the lease application. As soon as we move in together I end up under her thumb. She controlled every aspect of my life. What I ate. Where I went. What I wore. Who I spoke to. Even my dating/sex life was under her control. It literally got to a point where she decided the cut and color of my hair. She kept me isolated from my family and friends, constantly telling me my family didn't care about me. Anytime her control would slip, she would just threaten to beat the shit out of me she uses to box, and threaten to rape me as a joke. About 5 months in I can't take it anymore. I call my mom and, bless her, she came running. We make a 4-day plan to get me out. I get all my things together. I keep my door closed at all times. I don't tell a soul. By the time escape day came, I was so scared I was physically sick the whole day. Waiting for a text from Ali and on rescue, I get a text from WB saying she'll be home that night. The dramatic music. Thankfully Ali got there and helped me get my stuff out and we were gone before she got there. Needless to say my phone blew up. She would say anything to make me come back. I held firm. I didn't go back to her. But I still had to face her when I went back to work. She would tell anyone loudly and pointedly how I skipped out on the lease. She groomed a handful of our coworkers to take her side. It got to the point I told our boss I didn't feel safe coming to work and corporate had to tell her to leave me alone or be fired. She ultimately was fired and I never saw her again. TLDR, met a malignant Legbeard who completely stole my sense of self, and gives me PTSD 9 years later.
Neckbeard tries to perform psychic surgery on me with crystals and threatens my boyfriend by dark_dweebs. Howdy. Second time posting on Reddit, so have mercy on my lady, especially considering the light trauma of embarrassment I endured in this encounter. This happened a few years ago.
My boyfriend's family makes their yearly trek from out of state to come visit us, which includes his sister, her husband and their young boys. We thought they would enjoy this really cool rock and crystal shop that has a warehouse of every geode and stone you can imagine. What could go wrong? We get there, everyone goes off to explore on their own, but his sister and I stick together and do at all the pretty gems. In my periphery, I notice a small black shadow sidle up right next to me. I look over at Interloper and made eye contact. Why did I do that? Apparently, it's all the green light he needed. In retrospect, he hit all the neck boxes. Long black trench coat in that summertime, black cargo pants, combat boots, unkempt scraggly beard, hygiene and personal space nowhere to be found. He is small though, I'm 5'7" plus 130 pounds, he is much smaller than me at about 5'5" plus 110 pounds. Seemingly no obvious threat to me. Or so I think. He must have heard me talking to my sis-in-law about my back pain that I am still suffering with prior to approaching me. He takes it upon himself to start talking to me about the powers of crystals and how powerful he is, like some type of magical healer warrior wizard type shit. Alrighty then. He then takes a quartz wand and says, I can heal you. I can perform psychic surgery with this crystal just by rubbing it on your body. Oh God, he then takes it and starts pretending to touch my back with it, motioning what he would do. Long, slow sensual-like strokes on my upper back. Barf. I'm frozen in shock. This scene amuses sister's husband who watched him do that from afar and just proceeds to snicker uncontrollably and walk off. Gee thanks. He actually went to go get my boyfriend. My boyfriend comes up next to us. He is 6 feet 1 inch and built like he could be on Vikings. How this dweebet got so lucky, I'll never know. His presence seriously displeases the mystical mage. He openly sneers at my boyfriend and asks, "Oh, is this your boyfriend?" Yeep. Q Google eyes at boyfriend. He looks my boyfriend up and down and says to me, "You know, I could thrash him right now with my powers. It would kill him," as if my boyfriend wasn't even standing there and couldn't tie him like a balloon animal. Hell, I could even tie him up like a balloon animal. Though he might be into that. Obviously my boyfriend knows this petite Neckbeard is just a sad case, so there is no macho-ness activated on his part. Only pity. Neckbeard then says, "Well, if you weren't here right now, I could make you fall in love with me." I just reply, "There aren't enough crystals in the galaxy for that to happen." Turn my back and continue shopping. Luckily he gets the hint and walks off. I hear him ask a very bored associate if they have any dragon wings. Huh? In stock. Employee says yeah, in the clearance section. Neckbeard turns giddy and yells, "Oh sweet." Edit, forgot about one thing he said. My BF reminded me that after he said if he wasn't here right now, I could make you fall in love with me. But I just couldn't do that to your boyfriend. It wouldn't be right. What a nice guy. This threw off my BF especially since he'd just threatened to thrash him with crystals. TL, Dr. Neckbeard tries to heal my back problems and make me fall in love via crystals. Boyfriend shows up, threatens to thrash boyfriend with crystal powers, finds comfort from elusive dragon wings in clearance section.
Neckie thinks he can get Milady because she's a cripple. By StumpythePirate. So this is a fun one for you guys. I'll start with the people involved. I'll start with himself, Caitlin. I'm a 17-year-old girl, 5'8" inches and 125 pounds. I'm a fairly average teenage girl, except for 2 exceptions. 1, I absolutely love fast cars and racing is my fucking jam, and 2, I'm missing my left leg from the knee down. I had to have it amputated about a year ago because it caught the cancer. I'm probably fine now, they seem to have gotten it all out, but I am short a leg. Jackson, my best friend, after my surgery he spent the time and half the money converting my Ford Focus hatchback that was modified to be a rally car from manual to paddle shifting so I could still race with one leg. He also added a turbo which was something I had been wanting forever. There's nothing romantic between us, we're like brother and sister, and not the Lannister type. Anyways, he's a pretty kick-ass mechanic and is buff as fuck as a result. Anna, my other best friend and co-pilot, she paid for the other half of my car mods. She's very pretty, but also very timid. Adam, the Neckbeard. He's a misogynistic asswad who weighs damn near 300 pounds at a statuesque 5'6" inches. All he does is watch anime and play games, yet he still finds ways to look down on nearly everybody else. Nathaniel, Adam's Neckbeard friend, not incredibly important to this story, but it is important to note that he is tragic avalanche fat. He seriously weighs over 350 pounds at 17. Anyways, this story takes place 3 months ago, and it starts during lunch, and the English class that follows it. My school has an open campus policy, so Jackson, Anna and I go out and get food from this local wrap place, which makes delicious wraps really quickly. The main reason we go there, however, is because to get there from my school you have to go down a road we call the Strip. It earned this name by being a 2-lane, one-way street with 2 stoplights that are about 200 yards apart with nothing in between, making it perfect for racing. Usually we'll have a pretty even match pull up next to us, but not on this day, no. On this day I look to my left and see Adam and Nathaniel sitting in a shitty little 4-banger. They look at me like the cocksure pricks that they are and try to reverend up their engine, only to have a pathetic whine escape it. I just give them a nod because I don't want to reveal that I'm packing a turbo. The light turns green and I'm off, quickly leaving them in the dust. We laughed about it as we got our lunch, not realizing that we had enticed/enraged the ham beast. We all sat down in our English class and enjoyed our wraps while waiting for the bell to ring. We were about 10 minutes early, so it was just us. After 3 minutes people started to trickle in, then Adam huffed his way into the room, toting a McDonald's bag. He frumped down directly in front of me, which was unusual, then he turned around, which was even more unusual. Then he said the most ridiculously misogynistic/offensive thing had directed at me to date. "Wow, you drive really fast, especially for a female." I quickly decided it wasn't worth the fight, so I just said, thanks I guess. He took that opportunity to one-up the dickhead factor by saying, "It's especially surprising considering." He then tapped his gross-ass sandal against my prosthetic leg. I remained silent, but that didn't deter him, nay, it emboldened him. "Did you know there are guys out there who have a fetishes for girls who are missing limbs?" He paused to completely ignore the disgust on my face, then continued, "Personally I think it's kind of sexy, in a weird way. To misquote the great scribe/you/lady_saber, great, good to know I'm satisfying your fetishes." He then sort of leaned into my desk and said, verbatim, "I shit you not, so aren't you gonna give me your number?" I was taken aback, so all I could say was, "Ooh, no." This was apparently the wrong answer because he went into a rant about how he showed me attention and I should give him a chance because who else wants to date a filthy cripple and all women are friend-zoning cunts and blah blah blah. He was cut short by the bell. Class didn't start for another minute and a half because everyone was trying to figure out what the fuck just happened, then wrap their heads around the massive stupidity and entitlement required to be such a massive asshole.
Neckbeard/incel/chaser at work by SnommyMommy. Hey, I'm kinda new to all this, but heck I want in, and I have story with one of encounters with the neckbeard kind. So I work at a resort and I was working at one of the restaurants as a cashier, but I often volunteer everywhere I can trying to get my foot in the door for better positions. One day I was helping with inventory work, so moving stuff all around, and I have a bit of an organized mess making sure everything was 100%. Enter a Neckbeard team member, NB. He is a short pudgy guy, kinda looks like a gremlin, super unkempt, the whole 9 yards. I never really pay no mind, after all he's part of the utilities crew, either taking out trash or washing dishes. I happen to be in his way with my step stool and boxes of Togo boxes. NB, excuse me sir, may I come through? He always talks in some fake posh accent I'd guy. Note, I'm a trans woman deep into my transition, and a lot of people would never guess just by looking at me I was trans. I cringe at the fact I was called sir for the first time in months, but I got out of his way and politely corrected him. He clearly didn't hear me because he would continue to address me as sir every time he would try talking to me, and after like the 100th time I put my foot down and told him if he wants to actually have a conversation or even ask how my day was, respect my pronouns, or if you don't want to call by them then call me by my name or just don't talk to me. After that I never saw him and I kinda felt bad cause he probably didn't know better cause I kinda tend to act like a bitch, but boy I was wrong. After a month of trying to get a better position, I went from cashier to a server at one of the more popular venues, which I was really excited for mainly due to the much loose restrictions on the uniform. From skinny jeans to more flary makeup and piercings, making sure I'm at 120% killing it with my looks cause lol I wanna make some good tips. But with cute gothy looks comes unwanted neckbeard attention. I ran into him again, only now it seems he's permanently washing dishes in my venue, and goddammit he has 3 modes, horrible singing, like oh lord STFU man you're killing my brain cells, trying to talk to me, or throwing a temper tantrum for all the dishes piled in front of him because he was busy doing the first 2 things. He would not shut up and he would always try talking to me, and for once he got my pronouns right, and at first I didn't mind that I was talking about my experience playing Borderlands 3 and he buds in with how much he loves the games too. Good for you, but I didn't ask you, I will always reply. After I exhausted that excuse I would just ignore him and continue to take care of my guests, and he will talk about things like his dump theories on his favorite shows and games like Rick and Morty or Sonic. Even his fanfictions, which were either edgy or cringy or both. Then he will try and tell me how pretty I am and I would give him a cold dead stare and tell him to do his damn job. This will continue for months to the point I straight up avoid him, and he tries sitting by me on my break and follow me to my car, and he could not take a damn hint. I want nothing to do with him. Then the ultimate cringe, I was heading back to work from break and he was waiting for me by one of the hallway doors and he opens it for me and bows. NB, after you milady. I legit never thought someone would do something so cringy to win my attention, but goddamn I felt like puking my lunch from how disgusted I felt, like a part of me just died and died again in hell. Like I might sound like a bitch for not hearing his heart out, but he cannot take a hint, damn. So I had to be blunt with him. Me, can you not? You really creep me out and you make me super uncomfortable. If you couldn't tell. Please stop talking to me and stop following me. I'm not your friend or anything you think I am. Please leave me the fuck alone. I tried really hard to be nice. NB, fine then you cunt. I was trying to be nice, but I guess you trannies really don't want true validation from real gentlemen and be treated like a proper lady. I was baffled and pissed at his response and just went back to work and ended up talking to my managers and then with his about the incident I had with the ENB. And honestly I love my workplace because they actually take my problems seriously, and he got written up, and the next day I saw him he was throwing his tantrums and actually breaking dishes left and right, ranting how much he hates his job and hates pompous bitches. Honestly, it was kinda funny to watch until he took the hose running with hot chemicals and water and sprays down his coworker after telling him to calm the fuck down. You can guess what happened to him afterwards. He was fired lol. A neckbeard and most likely an incel, maybe a chaser, but I'm glad don't get to see him again.